Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Visualize Muhammad Ali. What's the very first image that hits your brain? It's pretty instantaneous.
Oh, yeah. For me, it has to be the ring, the lights.
Exactly. The heavyweight belt held high, the mouth open, shouting to the rafters. Maybe it's the rumble in the jungle, sweat flying, George Foreman stumbling,
Yeah.
the flashing cameras, just the absolute deafening noise of global superstardom.
It's the ultimate image of conquering the world, the apex predator of sport.
Right. Now, I want you to freeze that image, hold that massive chaotic energy in your mind, and pivot completely. Teleport from Kinshasa to a quiet Tuesday evening in a boarding school dorm room.
That is quite the shift in scenery.
It is. Picture a 14-year-old student, maybe sitting on the edge of a twin bed. The room might be a bit messy, or maybe it's dead silent. They aren't fighting a heavyweight champion.
No.
They're fighting a math assignment they don't get. Or maybe they're just replaying an awkward comment they made at dinner, wondering why their roommate is giving them the cold shoulder.
The contrast is stark. But the internal conflict, that might be surprisingly similar.
And that is exactly where we're going today. We are diving into a fascinating guide called What a Boarder Can Learn from Muhammad Ali. And before you roll your eyes and think this is just some generic work hard pep talk
Or a boxing manual.
or a manual on how to perfect your left hook, just stop.
No, this is not about boxing technique at all. It's actually a really deep psychological profile. It takes the philosophy of Ali, specifically his whole approach to identity and self-construction, and it overlays it onto the intense ecosystem of a boarding school.
Which, if you've ever been in one, is its own kind of jungle.
Absolutely. It's a total institution, sociologically speaking. You live, you learn, you eat, you sleep with your peers. The social pressure is just relentless. So taking the mindset of the world's most individualistic athlete and applying it there.
To a place that demands conformity.
Exactly. That is a rich vein to mine.
It's a total clash of worlds. And the mission of this deep dive isn't to make you a boxer. It's to figure out how Ali's blueprint for identity helps a teenager survive and maybe even thrive when they are trying to figure out who on earth they are.
And survive is the right word. Adolescence is a vulnerable time.
So let's get into it. The first big pillar here is identity, and specifically the courage to define yourself. The material points out this specific trap that boarding students fall into.
The trap of external metrics.
Right. In a school, it is so easy to become just a label. I'm the smart kid, I'm the rugby player, I'm the musician.
Well, think about it. When you meet someone new, especially at that age, what's the first question? What subjects do you take? Or what sport do you play? We're sort of programmed to categorize people based on what they do.
Not who they are.
Exactly. And in a boarding house, you're surrounded by these labels 24/7. That pressure to conform to a specific box is just immense.
It's like living in a hall of mirrors. You just reflect what everyone else wants to see.
Precisely. And this is where Ali just completely disrupts the narrative. He realized something profound, and he realized it very early on. He said, if you don't define yourself, others will try to define you.
If you don't define yourself, others will try to define you. Wow. That hits hard.
Well, it's a defensive strategy. I mean, Ali entered a world 1960s America that had very specific, very limited definitions for a young black man. If he had just accepted the definitions society handed him, we wouldn't know his name.
He had to build a new one.
He had to construct a new identity from scratch.
So for a student, this isn't about race relations in the 60s, but it's the same mechanism. It's about rejecting the status quo of the dorm.
Precisely. The guide lists the pressures a boarder faces. The pressure to fit in, to be cool, to follow the crowd, to, suppress the weird or unique parts of themselves just to keep the peace. That's the path of least resistance.
But Ali didn't do least resistance.
No. And the insight here is that real confidence isn't about winning a gold medal. Real confidence is looking at that social pressure and being able to say, this is who I am, and I'm proud of it.
I love the list of things the guide encourages students to own. It's not just your grades. It says, own your culture, own your interests, even if they're nerdy, own your personality.
Own your way of learning. That's a crucial one.
Why that one?
Well, how many kids feel shame because they don't process information the same way as the person at the next desk? Ali wasn't an academic, but he was a genius in linguistic and kinesthetic intelligence. He owned his specific type of brilliance.
So the takeaway for the listener or the student they're thinking of is you don't need to hide the things that make you different.
No, those are your superpowers.
Yeah.
In fact, if you hide them, you disappear. You become a background character in your own life. Ali was never a background character.
Which brings us to the part of the Ali mythology that everyone knows, the catchphrase, the mantra.
I am the greatest.
You just can't talk about him without it. But this is where it gets really interesting for me. Usually we hear that and we think, wow, what an ego.
Arrogance. Yeah.
But this guide reframes it completely. It argues that I am the greatest wasn't arrogance, it was a tool.
It was a cognitive strategy. We call it self-affirmation or positive self-talk in psychology today.
Yeah.
But Ali was doing it instinctively.
The text says he refused to see himself as small.
That's the key. Think about the teenage brain. It has a negativity bias. It is constantly scanning for social threats. Did I say the wrong thing?
Yeah.
Do they like me? It defaults to, I am small.
So Ali hacked that system.
He hacked it. He visualized success, and he spoke it into existence before it even happened.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate here. If a ninth grader walks into the dining hall tomorrow, stands on a table, and screams, I am the greatest, that's not going to end well.
No. No, please don't do that. They will get roasted. Context matters.
So how does a normal student apply this greatest psychology without being, unbearable?
The guide breaks this down beautifully. It translates I am the greatest into everyday boarding behaviors. It looks like putting your hand up in class when you aren't 100% sure of the answer.
Okay.
It looks like auditioning for the school play, even if you've never acted. It looks like speaking in front of the house during a meeting.
So it's about taking up space.
It's about taking up challenges. But here is the nuance that I think is brilliant, and we need to lean into this. There's a difference between what we could call outcome confidence and growth confidence.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Outcome confidence is, I am raising my hand because I know I'm right. Or, I am trying out for the team because I know I'm the best player. That's fragile. If you're wrong or you get cut, your confidence shatters.
Right, and that's what kids are afraid of, being wrong.
Exactly. But the guide suggests Ali's mindset, and the mindset a student needs, is growth confidence. You raise your hand not because you're perfect, but because you believe I am capable of learning. You try out for the team because you believe I am capable of improving.
I am capable of growth. That's a huge shift. It takes the paralyzing fear out of it. You don't have to be the finished product to believe in yourself.
Ali said, I am the greatest, before he was. He was projecting a future self. A student needs to do the same. I am a mathematician, not because I got an A, but because I'm working at it.
It's aspiring to your own potential. But, and there is always a but in these stories, believing you're the greatest doesn't mean you win every single fight.
No, and reality hits hard.
We have to talk about resilience. Because if you just tell a kid, believe in yourself and you'll win, you're lying to them. Ali lost.
He lost significantly.
Yeah.
And the guide is very honest about this. It lists his struggles. Defeat in the ring, massive public criticism, illness later in life. But the big one, the one that really parallels the feeling of loss for a student, was the exile.
The 3 years he was banned from boxing.
3.5 years, the absolute prime of his athletic life. Taken away because of his political stance. He went from being the champion to being unable to work, stripped of his title, stripped of his license.
That's not just a loss. That's a total dismantling of his life.
Exactly. Now translate that emotional weight to a teenager. Obviously, failing a chemistry test is not the same as being banned from your profession by the government. But emotionally, to a 15-year-old.
I feel like the end of the world. Getting cut from the team, or a bad grade, a breakup. It feels like exile.
It feels catastrophic. And this is where the guide's definition of resilience is so important. I think we often define resilience as just toughness, like gritting your teeth and ignoring the pain.
Yeah, rub some dirt on it.
Right. But the guide defines it differently. It says resilience is not quitting on who you are becoming.
Not quitting on who you're becoming.
It's subtle, but it's so powerful. It acknowledges that you are struggling, you are down. But you don't abandon the project of you. You don't say, well, I failed the test, so I guess I'm stupid.
You say, I failed the test, but I am still becoming a student.
Exactly.
So what does that look like on a rainy Tuesday in November when morale is low?
It looks like recovering from a poor result without spiraling. It means continuing to go to practice after a disappointment. It means staying positive during those weeks where, nothing seems to go right.
It's the consistency.
It's the keep going.
Yeah.
Ali returned to the ring. He won the title back. But he only did that because during those 3.5 years of exile, he didn't stop being Muhammad Ali in his head.
He kept the identity alive even when the external validation was gone. That's the lesson.
Precisely.
All right, let's pivot to something a bit more tangible. We've talked about the internal stuff mindset, resilience, but Ollie was also a master of the external. When he walked into a room, the air changed. The guide calls this presence.
Presence is such an elusive quality. We usually think you're either born with it or you're not.
And we usually associate it with being loud,
Hmm.
especially with Ollie. I mean, the man was not quiet.
He was not.
So for the introverts listening, or the students who aren't naturally the life of the party, is this section just telling them to fake it, to start shouting?
Not at all. And the guide clarifies this immediately to avoid that exact anxiety. It says, you don't have to be loud to have presence.
Thank goodness for that.
Ollie's presence wasn't just his volume, it was his energy, his conviction. The guide breaks down how any student can manufacture this presence without changing their personality. And it comes down to three things: authenticity, respect, and confidence.
Let's talk about the body language part, because teenagers are often, well, slouchy, hoodies up, looking at phones.
The turtle defense.
Right. How does Ollie change that?
It's about being open. Ollie walked with his head up. He looked people in the eye. He was physically present in the space he occupied. For a boarder, simple things like making eye contact when you say good morning, sitting up straight in assembly, putting the phone away when someone's talking to you, that creates a magnetic quality.
It signals, I am here.
It signals, I value myself enough to be seen, and I value you enough to see you. That's what presence actually is. It's an energy exchange. If you're comfortable in your own skin, which goes back to that self-belief we discussed, people feel safe around you. They feel drawn to you.
So presence isn't about performing at people, it's about being connected with people.
Exactly. You can have immense presence sitting quietly in a library if you are focused and grounded.
I really like that. It makes charisma feel accessible to anyone. But there's one final piece of the Ollie puzzle we have to fit in. We've built the identity, the belief, the resilience, the presence. But without this last one, Ollie is just a loud guy who can punch hard.
Values.
Values, standing for something.
This is the moral compass. The guide makes a strong assertion here. Success means nothing if you don't live by your values. You can have the grades, the trophies, the leadership badge, but if you are empty inside, or if you're cruel, none of it matters.
Ollie famously lost everything because he stood by his values on the Vietnam War. He refused the draft. He said, my conscience won't let me go.
That's the extreme example. High cost, high integrity.
So bringing it back to the dorm, most kids aren't facing a Supreme Court case. What does standing for something look like in a Year 10 common room?
It's smaller moments, but they feel just as risky to the student. It's standing up for someone who is being teased.
Which is terrifying.
It is terrifying. Risking your own social capital to protect someone else. That's heroic in a high school setting. It's refusing to join in when everyone is gossiping, is working hard on a group project even when the others are slacking off.
It's being the person who says, hey, that's not cool.
Or even just not laughing at the joke. Silence can be a stance. The guide emphasizes that boarding is a laboratory for life. You're testing out what kind of human you want to be. If you practice cowardice now, you'll be a coward at 40.
That's a heavy thought. If you practice cowardice now,
It's habit formation. Character is a habit. Ollie practices values when it costs him millions. A student practices values when it might cost them a generic kind of popularity. But the guide argues that, in the long run, people respect the person who stands for something.
respect lasts longer than popularity.
Always. Values give your life direction. Without them, you're just drifting, chasing the next bit of applause. With them, you have a destination.
Wow. We've covered a massive amount of ground here. We've gone from the boxing ring to the psychology of self-talk to the body language of a teenager.
It's a comprehensive roadmap.
As we wrap this up, I want to look at the final thought for boarders that the guide leaves us with, because after all this talk of the greatest and big presence, it actually ends on a really gentle note.
It does. And I think this is vital, because we don't want listeners to leave feeling exhausted by the pressure to be Ollie.
The quote is, you don't need to be the greatest at anything right now.
Let that sink in. You don't need to be the best math student. You don't need to be the captain of the team.
But it continues. But you do need to believe that you matter, that you are growing, and that your identity is something to be proud of.
It shifts the focus from achievement to worth.
You matter just because you exist, not because of what you won on Saturday.
And here's the beautiful part, the ripple effect. The guide suggests that when you believe in yourself, when you have that authentic, quiet, alley-style belief, you don't just help yourself.
You help the whole house.
You become a safe harbor.
Mm.
Think about it. When you're around someone who is deeply insecure, it makes you anxious. You feel like you have to walk on
Oh,
eggshells?
totally. Insecurity is contagious.
But confidence, real, grounded confidence, is also contagious. When you are secure in your identity, you give permission to everyone around you to be secure in theirs. You try more, you grow more, and you lift the culture of the entire dorm just by being you.
So by being the greatest version of you, you actually help other people be the greatest version of them.
That is the ultimate win. That's the championship belt.
I love that. So here's a question I want to leave you with today, and I want you to really mull this over, whether you're a student, a parent, or just someone trying to navigate your own life.
Go for it.
Imagine you're walking into a room today. Could be a classroom, a boardroom, or just your kitchen. If you walked into that room, stripped of your titles, your grades, your salary, your social media followers, if you walked in just as yourself, would you be proud of the identity you are projecting?
That is the question. Are you defining yourself, or are you waiting for the room to tell you who you are?
Ali never waited. And neither should you. You don't have to be a heavyweight champion to back yourself. You just have to start.
Start today.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the mind of a legend. Go out there and be the greatest you. We'll see you next time.